So there seems to be a little bit of confusion, but I'm going to try to help you out with this. There are some people out there that, for whatever reason, think the Earth is flat. I don't understand this.
It's simple. Flat Earth. Earth is flat. There ain't no curve. I can't believe I'm still sitting here trying to explain this shit, honestly.
A lot of people don't really know enough about the mainstream ball Earth model. People don't know how fast we spin. They don't know when the moon's coming up, what phase the moon's in. A lot of people don't know what a solstice is. So a lot of people just sort of have this image on the left of the ball Earth. This image on the right is starting to gain momentum, and a lot of good information backs it up. So I just want to go through some of the key points for anyone new to this information, and later do a bit of theorizing and speculation as well. So as Nietzsche once said, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. That's often the case with a lot of new information. Around the 1400s, a lot of people were starting to think about the ball Earth due to some astronomers. And then Newton came along in the late 1400s with his gravity book that he didn't really complete. It was very fat and thick. And this man's still taught to this day. He's taught as being an academic scientist, but really he was an occultist, an alchemist, and a magician. It's kind of strange how the universities don't teach much about Newton the man, especially when they're hinging massive belief systems upon him. He's also had a lot of links to Freemasonry, which came out of the Knights Templar pretty much in the 1300s. So Newton's a guy that people don't know much about, but they're pinning a lot on him. Now this is the image and the dimensions everyone believes. This is in encyclopedias, schools, universities, and it shows the diameter around 13,000 kilometers. That's a lot of curvature to get through, you know. And what I did, I started researching spherical trigonometry to work out curvature, and I worked out that this is the correct one. Now from the observer, the first mile drops 8 inches, and the second mile drops 32 inches. It gets squared because we live on a ball and not a slope, and it keeps getting squared. Now if this is correct, which everyone thinks it is, then this is correct. So in 100 miles of walking along the Earth, one would have dropped 6,666 feet. It's quite a lot of curvature. In 10 miles, one would have dropped 66 feet. One scientist I spoke to said I was wrong, this is wrong, and it's 8 inches per mile. Full stop. And I sent him this and told him he lived on a pyramid and he should really give up science and take up golf or something. Now, curvature is really the main thing, one of the easiest things to grasp with the flat Earth model. What you can see is a lot of people with amateur rockets and amateur balloons are going up, and things look very flat. And in this photo you can see the sun doesn't really look 93 million miles away.
I'm astonished by how difficult it is to actually move around. The idea could like reach out and grab something with one of these gloves? No way.
I remember it was 3 years ago that I discovered that the Earth was not a spinning ball of water, but in fact it was a plane, as in a flat surface. I felt an excitement like a child on Christmas Day, and I created a series of videos claiming that I had 100% proof that the earth was flat. I even offered $1,000 to anyone that could debunk me. Looking back now at my presentation done in Microsoft Word, and me trying to convince people was silly of me, but I had fun and I learned a lot. I learned that people don't care what the shape of the earth is. They don't care that they're being lied to. This wasn't a response I expected. I didn't expect apathy, ridicule, and hate. After all, some people are gay, some people are straight, some people believe in intelligent design, others believe in evolution. But for some odd reason, everyone is supposed to believe that we're on a spinning globe. And speaking about a flat earth always seems to strike a nerve in many people. The four most popular responses people gave me was, "You're an idiot, go back to school," "How does it affect my life?" "Why would they lie?" and "What do they have to gain?" Never mind the proof that I was giving them that the earth was flat. That wasn't important. They wanted to know why. As if governments of the world don't lie to the people all the time for oil, money, control, and greed. So recently, the internet has been buzzing about the flat earth theory. Celebrities like B.O.B. and Tila Tequila have been spreading the news that the earth is flat, while YouTubers like Vegan Gains, Pharaoh Law, and Vsauce have all made pathetic attempts on trying to mock and disprove the flat earth theory. Even politicians and the United States president is talking about the flat earth theory. Let's quickly listen to what they have to say.
My friends, these people are so out of touch with science that they believe rising sea levels don't matter because in their view, the extra water is just going to spill out over the sides of a flat earth. They're wrong, obviously.
And we need to make clear that those members of the Flat Earth Society are on the wrong side of history. We are going to make Paris the demarcation point where we begin to get the job done to save the planet, period.
They must have been founding members of the Flat Earth Society. They would not have believed that the world was round. I want to be clear. I am willing to work with anybody. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, Greens, anybody to combat this threat on behalf of our kids. I'm open to all sorts of new ideas, maybe better ideas, to make sure that we deal with climate change in a way that promotes jobs and growth. Nobody has a monopoly on what is a very hard problem, but I don't have much patience for anyone who denies that this challenge is real. We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
You see, when public figures begin mocking certain ideas, that's when you have to begin looking into that idea, because most likely there is some truth in it. So with this hype about the flat earth, my subscribers urged me to get back into the flat earth arena. They even sponsored this video. This time I'm going to do things a little bit different. Let's start off by answering 3 of these questions. How does it affect your life? What do they have to gain? And why would they lie? Well, as far as how does it affect your life, this will only affect your life if you are an explorer and an open-minded truth seeker. This information will be of no use to you if you are a homebody and a closed-minded, willfully ignorant person. The Flat Earth movement is basically saying that there is more unexplored land beyond the South Pole, and the governments are prohibiting people from exploring past this restricted area. How do I know there is more land? Because in 1928, Admiral Byrd and the US Navy did an expedition and discovered that land extended at least 5,000 miles beyond the original southern end. And after follow-up expeditions, they discovered that this land continued and had no endpoint in sight. Most likely they didn't have enough resources or fuel to continue flying thousands of miles past the South Pole just to see if there is an endpoint. Be that as it may, overall, this was a frightening discovery that needed to be hidden. They couldn't have the masses learning about land beyond the ends of the earth. What happened next was 53 nations came together and signed the Antarctic Treaty, which stated no one can explore the South Pole without permission, and the region will be a scientific preserve used only for scientific and peaceful purposes. Which now brings me to why would they lie? They're lying because they have something to hide. Some people say they're hiding the creator. I think possibly people exploring beyond the South Pole will discover the ends of the earth, kind of like the movie The 13th Floor, The Truman Show, or Dark City. Possibly there are advanced civilizations beyond the South Pole, perhaps even ancient civilizations that we think went extinct, simply migrated to these lands beyond the Antarctic. So now that leaves us the last question. What do they have to gain? And the simple answer is the complete control over the minds of the people and where they can travel. You can't just jump up and say, I'm going to the South Pole to this unexplored land that Admiral Byrd was talking about in 1928. You need permission to explore. Trespassing will get you arrested or killed. The governments of the world have decided no more exploring, stay within your jurisdiction, ask no questions, and be a good little boy and girl. The earth is a ball, just like we taught you in school and on the TV. Anyone that tells you that the earth is flat is retarded. You know, Richard Nixon once said, the American people don't believe anything until they see it on the television. There's also a saying that there are three things that cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. What I find interesting is that religious people like Christians have told me that they believe the earth is a spinning ball. But in their holy book it says the earth has foundations. It says the earth cannot be moved. It says the earth is a stationary circle. So Christians, I'm just wondering, do you guys believe in the Bible or NASA? Now here we have a 1,000-year-old map of the world which originated from a Japanese Buddhist temple. What I find interesting is not only does it resemble the flat earth map, but it has 33 continents outside of the Antarctic ice ring. Is it a coincidence that this looks similar to the 1781 map of the world? The 1892 Gleason Standard Map of the world? The Azimuthal Equidistant Map? The logos for the UN? The IMO? The WMO? The WHO? Is it just me, or is there anyone else seeing a pattern here? Well, at the end of the day, I'm not here to convince anyone when in 1988 NASA has admitted that the Earth is flat. So now let's talk about why they said the Earth is flat. There's a couple bullet points I want to discuss. The first being NASA has proof, illusions and fantasies, impossible on a globe, the Bible says, and lastly, my final thoughts. I think the best place to start when talking about the flat Earth is NASA. We need to put NASA's credibility under the microscope. We need to first analyze and destroy NASA as an authority figure and as a reputable source of information or rebuttals. NASA, with the help of Hollywood and secret societies, are the puppeteers behind this grand illusion of the blue marble. NASA has become the frontman and the serpent of deception for the masses. I think of 5 acronyms when I hear of NASA: never a satellite around, never admit strange anomalies, nincompoops always selling alibis, not always scientifically accurate, and never a straight answer. What if I told you that NASA has slipped up and admitted to not only the Earth being flat, but that they've never been to the moon? Let's first look at this clip of NASA admitting they have never been to the moon.
Spacecraft that's going to take humans to explore the solar system. It's the next big step for NASA.
Called the Orion Multipurpose Crew Vehicle, or MPCV, this next-generation spacecraft will enable America to explore beyond low Earth orbit. This next-generation spacecraft will enable America to explore beyond low Earth orbit.
We get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually. And hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to.
And unlike the previous program, we are setting a course with specific and achievable milestones. Early in the next decade, a set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit. Early in the next decade, a set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
Well, surprise, surprise, no moon landings. Now let's segue and read NASA admitting that the Earth is flat. In a 1988 publication called Derivation and Definition of a Linear Aircraft Model, on page 7, they state, this report documents the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. They continue by stating, this report details the development of the linear model of a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. You know, I know this hurts for some people to hear their Lord and Savior NASA admitting defeat, to admit the Earth is flat. And I encourage people to verify this documentation, but something tells me that I'm still going to see NASA advocates in the comment section saying, I misinterpreted what they said, or I photoshopped the document. But no worries, because a link to the PDF will be in the description box below for you to see for yourself. Now, for those people that believe that NASA is comprised of the smartest people on the planet and think that people that say the Earth is flat and not rotating are stupid, well, what do you have to say now? Admittingly, this may be an emotional time for some people discovering this information. Some of you may be crying, confused, apathetic, or angry in an attempt to troll this video. But I highly discourage leaving silly, ignorant comments below, as none will be left uncontested. And I hope you do watch this video to the end, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. But I simply want to emphasize these two pieces of information because it's coming from the dragon's mouth, straight from the heliocentric religious organization that most people will defend to the death and use as a credible source to defend their round earth theory. Let's look at this video and photographic evidence that people love to show. On July the 16th, 2015, we had a Deep Space Climate Observatory satellite picture of Earth from space, and we can see the word sex upside down. The image you're looking at is flipped 180 degrees, and the word sex in the cloud formation can be seen in the northeast portion of the globe. I know some people will argue and say that seeing sex in the clouds means nothing because they can see faces, animals, and words in the sky all the time. However, Matthew Boland, a former NASA operational graphics manager who worked with NASA for years creating photorealistic computer graphics, states that all photographs from the Hubble telescope are NASA hoaxes. Consider the fact that NASA has admitted that their images are composites made up of 3 layers of pictures from the alleged satellite digital cameras. My question is, why is it necessary to make a composite image at all? Why not just take one picture of the Earth and be done? The obvious answer is because there are no satellites and the Earth is not a globe. The images we see are simply beautiful works of art. NASA knows that these layers of images would likely be discovered in the future, so they decided to admit that they are layered images. The heliocentric model. Our authority figures have told us every 6 months the Earth will be 180 degrees in its orbit around the Sun, and be opposite the sun from where it was 6 months earlier. However, there is a problem with this model. Let's say we begin our observation of the sun 12 noon in New York on September the 22nd. According to the heliocentric model, every 24-hour day the Earth is supposed to do an exact 360-degree spin on its axis and end up at the same place. That means that after 6 months, 12 noon in New York will arrive during the middle of the night on March the 21st. Under the heliocentric model, this occurrence should happen year in, year out, every year. However, this doesn't happen, which means the heliocentric model is wrong. Polaris also proves the heliocentric model is pure fantasy. Polaris is the North Star and is allegedly fixed above the North Pole of the Earth. However, the problem is the North Star can be seen below the equator. Scientists want us to believe that the North Star is kept perfectly synchronized with the orbit of the Earth around the sun, while the sun is supposedly traveling at speeds approximately 500 miles per hour around the Milky Way galaxy. Even more fantastic is the fact that scientists hypothesize that this Milky Way galaxy is racing through space at the speed ranging from 300,000 miles per hour to 1,340,000 miles per hour. The North Star not only proves that the Earth is flat, but that the heliocentric model is wrong. The midnight sun also disproves heliocentrism. Places with the midnight sun are areas with 24-hour daylight. Now here we have a 360-degree panoramic time-lapse photograph which shows the path of the sun over the island of Lopa in the northern part of Norway between 7 p.m. July 21st and 6 p.m. July 22nd. This picture illustrates that in midsummer north of the Arctic, the sun stays above the horizon for 24 hours of the day. The photograph shows the sun as it makes a complete circle over the head of the photographer as he took one picture each hour during a 24-hour period. The photographer has inadvertently proved the sun circles over a flat Earth. How so? Simple. The only way the sun would be seen to circle the observer on a globular spinning Earth would be if the observer was standing directly over the North Pole. Any distance south of the North Pole should create a zigzag back and forth sun pattern in the sky if the Earth were truly spinning and orbiting a 93 million mile distant sun. Now of course, some people are skeptical about this information, so they will Google midnight sun and it will say, the midnight sun is a natural phenomena that occurs in the summer months in places north of the Arctic Circle or south of the Antarctic Circle when the sun remains visible at the local midnight. And then y'all will come back and try to argue that people can see the sun in the Arctic and Antarctic region because the Earth is on a tilt. And to some people, that rebuttal may seem like a good answer, but it's not good enough. The first problem is we are not on a ball, but for argument's sake, let's say we are. How exactly do you prove that this ball is tilting on an axis? How do you explain that the photographer can see the sun do a full circle and not be at the North Pole? How do you explain an Earth that has a 24-hour day cycle and is supposed to do a 360-degree spin on its axis, yet somehow, miraculously, we have allegedly 6 months and 6 nights in the Arctic and Antarctic region? We know in North Cape, the northernmost point in Europe, has 76 days of full midnight sun. Fairbanks, Alaska, which is also below the Arctic Circle by almost 200 miles, still receives 24 hours of light for long periods in summer. Svalbard, Norway, the northernmost inhabited region of Europe, has no sunset from approximately the 19th of April to the 23rd of August. In Reykjavik, there is a midnight sun from the 16th and the 29th of June. In Canada, there is sunlight 24/7 for 56 consecutive days. How in the world can any place get 50 to 70 plus days of sunlight on a spinning ball that's on a tilt? The only way this can happen is if the Earth is flat. Let's talk about gravity. But first, I have a question. How many equations are there for gravity? Is it 1 or 2? If you guessed 1 or 2, you would be incorrect, because there are many equations for gravity. And it just goes to show you that anyone can fudge together numbers to validate their beliefs. Some people will say that gravity is not a theory, it is a law. My question is, who said it's a law, and has this law ever been broken? What if I told you that this so-called law of gravity has and still can be broken? Let's look at some people that broke the law of gravity. Saint Joseph of Cupertino was one of the saints best known for levitating during prayer. Then we have Saint Gerard Majella, who was known for flying in the air. On one occasion, according to witnesses, he flew for half a mile before coming back to the earth. Benedict Joseph Libre, a Frenchman and Catholic, was known for his levitations. Saint Angela of Brescia, who founded the Order of the Ursuline Nun, was in 1592 seen multiple times levitating during holy services by the entire congregation of the church and remained suspended for long periods. Saint Alphonsus Liguori, an Italian Catholic bishop and the founder of the Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, while preaching was seen multiple times levitating before the eyes of the entire congregation several feet from the ground. There's been so many people that have experienced levitation. It's sad that I can only find the names of Europeans that levitated. One can only imagine all the Indians, Asians, and Africans that have levitated through history. So again, do scientists really understand gravity? How do they explain the documented proof of people levitating? How is it possible that gravity can hold in the massive amount of waters in the ocean, but lighter objects can escape the Earth's gravity, like a bird or balloon? A person can leap almost half his height, all the while, according to scientists, we have an atmospheric pressure of 14.7 pounds per square inch acting on the body. Later in this video, I'll be playing a clip from NASA claiming that so-called planets that are gas giants have gravity. The theory that gravity is pulling everything inwards on a spinning ball of water is pure fantasy. Not only will you have to scramble for an explanation about flying saints, but I'm going to add in the flying humanoids in Mexico. Thousands of people have been seeing beings flying in the air. Even a police officer was attacked by one of these humanoids. Let's also throw in the mystery of the Santa Cruz mystery spot, where water flows upwards and cars and balls roll uphill. These magnetic hills scientists claim to be an optical illusion. The late astronomer Royal Sir George B. Airy once said, "On a whole, we must express our opinion that the general cause of the Earth's magnetism still remains one of the mysteries of cosmical physics." Now, some people are going to get upset and call me crazy for my following arguments, but before you do, please get yourself a telescope and look at the planets yourself and tell me, what do you see? Because I've looked at the so-called planets and I have read books and I've done some research and I've come to the conclusion that these planets are not balls spinning in space. These planets are luminous bodies, nothing more, nothing less. NASA has even admitted that Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are gas giants, which would mean they are not solid, and as a result, they cannot be spinning balls in space. NASA believes people are stupid, and to some extent they are correct, and they will continue to tell people that these bodies of gas has gravity, and they will be landing probes on these bodies of gas. Let's look at some of these so-called planets. Here is a picture of how NASA shows Venus. Now here is how Venus actually looks. Here is how NASA shows Jupiter. And here is a close-up of how Jupiter actually looks. Here we have a NASA image of Saturn. And here is a close-up of how Saturn actually looks. NASA again with their depiction of Uranus. And here is a close-up of how Uranus actually looks. Now let's keep in mind that similar to what they have done to make it standard for most cameras, to have a fisheye lens so people can see a curvature in their video and pictures, is exactly what they have done to these telescopes. Most, if not all, digital telescopes are pre-programmed with software to give the viewer an image of the planet they want you to see. I've come to the conclusion that NASA is trolling the masses. They claim that there's no sound in space, but then they claim they have recorded the sound from planets. One moment they will say that Pluto is a planet, and then they will come back and say, we change our mind, Pluto is no longer a planet. I'm going to play some clips of NASA talking about planets, but I'm not going to be giving any commentary because I don't think I can help myself from laughing hysterically. But I'll be adding some annotations and leaving it up to you guys to decide if NASA is telling the truth about so-called planets.
And NASA has announced that the administration's Kepler Space Telescope has discovered the single largest collection of planets outside of our solar system. The Kepler mission verified over 1,200 new planets nearing human beings towards an answer on whether or not we're alone in the universe.
It's been over a decade since a spacecraft has orbited Jupiter. But our solar system's largest planet is finally getting a visitor. After traveling 1.8 billion miles over 5 years, NASA's Juno spacecraft has reached its destination. The goal of the $1.1 billion mission? To better understand the formation and evolution of Jupiter. To discover whether the solar system's oldest planet has a solid core and how it produces its gigantic magnetic field.
Astronomers using the Hubble telescope have found a deep blue planet 63 light years away. Unlike Earth, the blue color does not come from oceans. Instead, NASA says the planet is a gas giant with a daytime temperature of 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And get this, it may rain liquid gas sideways amid winds of 4,500 miles an hour.
Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, laying out their plan for the next 18 years. That'll take us up to the year 2030. Now, we're going to see an unmanned network of research facilities on the surface of Mars. Now, they will be there to gather as much information as they can and send it back here to Earth, hopefully being one of the first steps towards mankind being able to set up a base on Mars. Now, we saw Russia leading the way in Martian exploration with the Mars 500 project. They said that was a step towards the first step. Perhaps this establishment of a network of facilities on the surface really is that true next step to being able to explore the red planet. Now, there'll also be missions to Venus and to Jupiter, and we're hearing that we could see a manned mission to the moon. So all of this by the year 2030 is certainly very ambitious, but certainly very exciting projects.
So what are some things that are impossible on a globe? In 1915, we had a radio signal from Arlington, Virginia to Hawaii and Paris. What about the mariner's compass? The needle of this instrument is pointing north and south at the same time. Consequently, the meridians must be straight lines also, whereas on a globe, they are semicircles. What about rivers that flow uphill, like the Nile and Mississippi River? What about sundials, which I dare anyone to put a sundial on a globe and see if they get the appropriate shadows. I guarantee without a doubt you will not get the appropriate shadows. Only on a flat Earth can a sundial work. Let's look at this video clip. We also have to look at the visibility of distant objects, which is impossible on a globe. For example, the Chicago skyline can be seen clearly. Here's a picture taken by Joshua Nowicki as he stood at Grandmere Park, Michigan, which is approximately 57 miles across from Lake Michigan. We have other places such as St. Botolph's Parish Church in Boston, which is 290 feet tall and visible for 40 miles, but it should be hidden under 800 feet curvature. The Cape of Lagula of South Africa is 238 feet high and visible for 50 miles, where it should be below 1,400 feet of curvature if the Earth was really a ball. If the Earth was truly a globe, we would see curved clouds at the horizon. We would see the bottoms of planes coming up from the horizon. Water would also have to show some curvature, but the reality is we see no convexity. only a perfectly leveled water. There are over 200 proofs that the Earth is flat, and unfortunately, I won't be going over each one. But I want to close this section with an interview of a missile expert admitting the Earth is flat and missiles do not account for any curvature.
Our fire control radar, we actually use a 2-degree pencil beam. It's a very, very tight beam, so there's very little room for deviation on that, and it's a direct line of sight radar.
Okay.
And we're able to track targets up to 50 nautical miles away, and on a curved Earth, that just doesn't add up.
Followed the Chicago skyline.
I have 60 miles away across Lake Michigan. Yep, they can see the whole city.
There you go. So this is collaborating that, which he's saying he can track targets at 50 miles away, which should be about 1,700 if you round up, 1,700 feet below the horizon. But you're hitting them just fine. Wow.
And we're tracking them just fine, and it just doesn't add up. You know, you can do simple trigonometry on it with elevation angle, and you know everything works out, and you don't drop the track. You can track it quite a bit of a distance out.
We're talking about line of sight targeting or GPS for the projectile, for the missile.
For the missile, it's line of sight targeting. That's basically, like I said earlier, we track the target with a illuminator, and it's basically just another piece of gear that's tied into ours. And once we lock up on the target, we're line of sight pointing straight at it because it's a 2-degree pencil beam. It has to be pointing straight at it, because if it's not going to see it. It's not a search radar. It's a fire control radar. If you're supposedly looking at something, 50 nautical miles away around a huge curve, it's just you can't punch through the ocean with RF.
But the point is that the 2-inch beam, you have to have it on there for most of the trip. That thing's
Not
out
most,
there.
all of it, pretty much.
Okay, all the trip except for the last couple seconds, if that. You can pull it off if you had to.
If you absolutely had to, but you have to understand, if it's not close enough, if you pull it off, the missile will go ballistic on its last update, and it might not hit the target.
Got it. And so if what you're basically saying is this 2-inch beam, which you're painting the target with, is you guys, when you're firing this thing out there, you do not account for curvature. That beam shouldn't be able to reach a target at a certain at whatever the at 50 miles should not be able to hit that target.
Yeah, and this is a perfect thing, and I'm really glad that I was fortunate enough to work on this, because the argument always is, well, we can reach over a curve because we're a search radar and we use atmospherics and bounce off different parts of the atmosphere, and then it comes back down. Okay. Now, see, the problem with that is this can't happen with a 2-degree pencil beam. The angle of this cannot put RF up into an atmosphere and then bounce it back down and then expect to get it back so we can properly track.
It's too
precise.
There's a code, there's a door, it opens, and you leave. Also, sometimes morons leave the door open. The idiots at NASA, who are busy getting around with everything, and they go, oh, we're going to leave the door open. This will be a good idea. And then the meteorites come in and hit us. NASA's fault. Never happened before. Think about it. The history of the world. When do you ever remember there being asteroid impacts? Not before NASA. It never happened before NASA. People go, what about Tunguska? No. That was primeval nuclear weapons. Asteroids. You morons. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You close the door. We don't have this problem. Stop burning plastic. We're going to die.
Of the sun, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, telling us how the sun is supposedly 93 million miles away, when it's actually only a few thousand miles away.
head of the Orthodox Church. Now, the thing that's interesting is that this is the first meeting in 1,000 years since the Orthodox Church split from Rome, right? So it's a historic thing. Now, what's even more interesting is this. The next day, Kirill, the head of the Orthodox Church, leaves for Antarctica, right? Now, the article says that he went there to see the penguins and to visit the scientists. They had set up a little church. Now, if you believe that, I've got some of Saddam's nuclear weapons to sell you. I dismissed completely any evidence of Planet X or any theories. Everything all went out the window. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that's wrong, because obviously planets are not fake, right? We may not know what they are, but they're there. So it's plausible the Planet X could be real. Now, is there something coming our way? Or is there, or maybe Pope told the Kirill about the edge? I don't know, like, it just seems something like there's something that can only be seen from Antarctica, right? And with all the chemtrails, it just makes you think, what are they trying to hide? So maybe there is something in the sky. Or maybe you just went to see the edge. I don't know. But it just seems really fishy. And it reminded me of something. And that was this. Pope, the bearer of bad news. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think.
I'm passionate about space exploration. I want people to get out there. I want to get people motivated. I want to bring people's attention to what we have in the outer solar system, and we need to have our eyes on this kind of shit. So what better way than, why don't you guys try to prove to me that the Earth is flat if you think the Earth is flat?
It's like a pizza dough, right? Yeah.
that's science right there. You got pizza dough, and you flatten out the, when you spin the pizza dough, it flattens out naturally. So you spin it, it flattens out, and then it turns into a ball. That's what you believe. And first off, if it did do that, if all the land is where it is, where the oceans, and it formed into a ball, all of the land would be formed to the middle, to the equator. All of the land would be surrounding the middle, and all the water would be up and below. Because if it is spinning, if it did do that, what they say, it would form, all the landmass would be in the center, in the equator, by the equator.
If the Earth were still, according to the Earth's, NASA, the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour. Okay? And if you go to, like, for example, the ride, the Gravitron, the faster it goes, the more the children go toward the end of the edge of the wall. You see what I'm saying? When gravity goes, it basically spins. Force, yeah. Exactly. So, how could it be that the Earth holds millions of tons of water when the Earth is spinning supposedly at 1,000 miles per hour?
Well, I've been disputing gravity since 2010, and I have witnesses for that in California. So I remember this. So you believe that there's people in Australia, just boats, planes, they're all upside down, and gravity's keeping them. So down is up there.
Earth is flat. Actually, to say that they still think the Earth is flat is not a great way of putting it, because people have thought that the Earth was flat for thousands and thousands of years, even in recent days. And they've gotten all these counter arguments to prove that the Earth is indeed flat. I'm stumped. I watched a couple documentaries on YouTube, and according to my statistics, which is just like how many likes I've seen on videos, comments, and people sharing, there's at least 50,000 people out there who think that the Earth is flat. So,
okay, I got something fun today. Okay, guys, about 20 hours ago, NASA just cast another spell. They decided to do a little more sorcery and put out another titillating, mesmerizing video to get all of their worshipers starry-eyed. Oh yeah, it's a 1-year time-lapse photograph of the Earth from a satellite called EPIC, which is 1 million miles away, directly between the Earth and the Sun, in that perfect orbit for a whole year. So let's take a look at what they just released, and I just looked at this for about 30 minutes. I did a quick skim over it and went, this thing has got some problems. So let me share with you what it looked like to me, and then maybe you guys can pick it apart and see what you think, but I think it's pretty weak in the tradition of NASA with their $1 billion CGI budget. They're so weak, they can't even get it right, man. But check it out. Okay, so here's their official image in their video. You'll see the video, there's a link on the page here, but it's 1 million miles stationed perfectly between the Sun and the Earth, and it took photos every 2 hours of the planet Earth, showing us all the things we should see. Now, interestingly enough, we know that there's supposed to be thousands of satellites going around the Earth in orbit, low orbit, geosynchronous orbit, and there's a lot of other satellites at varying distances and varying orbital rates. And according to orbital mechanics, the position of a satellite has to do with its velocity. The faster it goes, well, it has to go faster to stay in a lower orbit. So if this thing is 1 million miles closer to the Sun than us, it has to be going around the Sun faster than we are. There's no way it could stay synchronized with the Earth, traveling the same speed if it's over 1% closer. It would be moving 1% faster to sustain that orbit, which means that it would run away from the Earth about a month. 365 days, figured 300 days, it would get ahead of the Earth and it would never be able to maintain that position. So there's the first point. Second, keep in mind it's an oblate spheroid, right? So we're going to look at their pictures of the Earth here. Okay, sorry, Tyson. I know it's sensitive, but let's look at the pictures that they gave us. These are snapshots of their video, and it's funny because from the Earth you can see stars, and they say you can see satellites, but from their satellite you can't see any satellites. Now remember, the sun is directly behind this epic satellite taking these pictures. Why can't you see a reflection? There's not even a speckle. Oh, well, it's because it's fake. I guess that's why. So here we're looking at the Earth from the satellite. No stars, no satellites glittering back. I know, not Tyson, I'm sorry, bro, but what am I supposed to do? Oh, by the way, look at this joke. You see that in the clouds? I just glanced this video. And they doodle on the clouds and then they airbrush them. You can find stuff like this all over the place. It looks like there's what, ABT, are there initials across the top of it in the clouds also? You can see the time stamps on these when I snip them, so you can go and look at this yourself. You'll probably find 100 more. But these guys are a bunch of clowns. They're like a bunch of frat kids doodling when they're doing their airbrush work, and and then they hide it, like when you write a cuss word in your in class, and then you start scribbling it out to hide it. That's all they do, is they graffiti the Earth and then they airbrush the clouds over it. I don't know what they were smoking when they did this one, but I saved the best thing for last. Now keep in mind that the satellite is 1 million miles closer to the sun than we are. It's impossible for it to sustain that orbit because it's orbiting the sun. It would have to go faster if it was closer. But when you look back at the Earth, when you watch this video, you're going to see that there is a shiny spot right in the middle of the Earth from the sun, supposedly the highlight of the ball. And then they show you this eclipse. Now, why isn't the eclipse centered, first of all? Because if the satellite is directly between the sun and the Earth, and the moon is directly between the sun and the Earth to cause an eclipse, well, first of all, why isn't the eclipse straight over the center where that shiny spot is, where the sun is reflecting off of it? And secondly, why can't you see the moon? The moon is only a quarter the distance from the Earth as the satellite, and it's all supposed to be in perfect alignment. If the satellite is between the sun and the Earth, and the moon is eclipsing the Earth because it's between the sun and the Earth, and the satellite is farther away than the moon, how can you not see the moon? The same reason you can't see any stars, the same reason you can't see the glitter or reflection of any satellites. It's because they lie all the time, people. I'm sorry. I didn't even pick this apart. If I took another couple hours and really went over it, it would probably be ridiculous. I'll let you guys do that. But this doesn't add up. This is another spell that NASA's casting on the population to try to get them to buy into their crap. That's all it is. The sooner people recognize it for what it is, the better off everybody's going to be. Anyway. So I'm drinking my coffee this morning. I just threw this together for y'all. Take a look at it. But when I saw the fact that there was an eclipse shadow and there was a shiny spot where the sun is reflecting off the Earth, you can't see the moon. The satellite is between the sun and the Earth, and the moon's supposed to be there too to cast a shadow. And it's not even there. So that was the blatant thing that obviated the fakery right off the get. But just check the video out. Watch the whole thing. Stop it. Pause it. Look for the graffiti. You'll see it. Sometimes you can see that there was something there, and they scribbled it out pretty good with the airbrush thing when they put the clouds on. But wow, guys, it's really a pretty sorry release. They said they took a photo every 2 hours and didn't get the glittery reflection of one satellite in a year. Come on, man. See you soon.